Hi, this is Steve Webster. Thanks for joining today's thought. And we're in a series of dinosaurs and how does it relate to the Bible in this case. So there's many questions about dinosaurs, and some people have a belief system that based on dinosaurs, well, we have to have age, we have to have long periods of time, millions of years. And some people will say, well, because of dinosaurs, I don't believe in a young Earth. Because of dinosaurs, I don't believe in Christ. So it is, on one hand, you can say, oh, it seems like kind of childish thing. Dinosaurs, kids love dinosaurs. But in another sense, it's a very important topic. So if we go to Genesis 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 25, God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. So what are kinds? So let me share my screen. So kinds in this case would be similar to what we see here on this screen to family, right? So we're not talking about uh, Genesis and species here. We're talking about kinds. So with kinds, it has enough DNA to break out with a variety of the DNA itself to create these other classifications. So let's go back to me here. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to cover about, has there been any eyewitnesses accounts of dinosaurs hundreds or 1,000 years ago or so? And so that's what today's is about. Any signs that people saw dinosaurs. So what does that imply? Well, as a biblical person, we learned that there's creation that I just read. And then also in Genesis, it talks about a worldwide flood. Uh, at the time of this recording, President Donald Trump is actually in North Carolina. He was amazed of how much water can damage things in North Carolina. And that is, I guess we would call a regional water event, a flood event. A hurricane covering that large area of multiple states is bad, but it's still not the world. And it's surprising how much mud and water can do to cause damage. So if we talk about a worldwide flood, we would expect something far much greater. And then if we continue with the thinking, it's like, well, then wouldn't that wipe out everything if there was a worldwide flood? Yes. Some people say, oh, an asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula and killed all the dinosaurs, but left all the other living things alone. Well, that's a problem too. How do you explain that? And you have to try and work to say, well, this is why they died out, but nothing else died out. So it's a lot of faith in that if you think about it. So during the Great Flood, we understand that God identified Noah and his wife and three sons and their wives as the only people who weren't constantly thinking evil. Uh, the account in Genesis talks about people were just constantly, constantly thinking evil, but they were the exception. So God spoke to them to say, well, I got to wipe out everything except for you guys, then to repopulate. So it's quite the historical event and documentation. Some people refer to that as a story never happened. At best, it's regional, but it says it covered to the highest part of the mountains, like 20 feet or so. It's like, well, how do you do that for half the mountain if it's regional? It was the whole mountain. I mean, how do you do regional, right? So then on the ark, what animals went on? He said all land-breathing animals went on. Some scientists, PhDs at the end of their name, to say, well, technically insects don't really need to be on the ark with that definition, but even if they were, they're still small. And then another thing about the ark is like, well, how can you fit everything? This isn't a video about the ark. That may be further discussion, but I have to bring in some of it. So scientists will say, well, if you took all animals, you have to count extinct animals that we see in the fossil record. If you took all animals, so then what percentage of the animals, according to the account, was on the ark that are now extinct? 70% is the estimate. that the kinds of animals going onto the ark are now extinct. Only 30% that were on the ark are still alive at the kind level. So we're not talking about the variations of dogs or cats. We're talking about the kind. Like with dogs, a wolf is in the classification family for dogs in this case, right? A fox is in the dog kind and so forth. So just to bring that clarification. So that implies all breathing animals would include dinosaurs. So that would mean dinosaurs would have to go on there. How many kinds of dinosaurs? Well, at the kind level, not that many, believe it or not. What was the average size of a dinosaur? Fully grown, the average size is, I think it was described as like a large oxen type of size, so not too bad. And then some people will suppose to say, well, you wouldn't put older uh, animals on the ark if you're supposed to repopulate it later. You would go lower. The question is, how low would you go? And well, it's got to be at least juvenile and up, you would think, male and female of each kind. Again, each kind. So that would include dinosaurs. So is there any evidence after the flood that dinosaurs existed? The other interesting thing is when Noah and his family finally got off the ark a year later or so, um, God did say you can now eat of the animals, not just for any type of sacrifices that may be going on, but you can now eat from these animals. So it's like, okay, did they repopulate enough then eat, or did you start eating before repopulation could take hold and therefore extinction? Uh, don't know. But so with that case, now we're going to quickly jump into, is there any evidences in the past hundreds or 1,000 years of man witnessing dinosaurs? So the first thing I wanted to do is share my screen with this video snippet. So let me adjust for the sound. I'll be right back. So let's take a look at this video to get started.
To have been spawned from. And the plethora of dinosaur depictions demonstrating people did observe these creatures, found on tapestries, carvings, and engravings around the world, prove it. Indeed, just 3 such unique finds depicting sauropods clearly demonstrate humans witnessed live dinosaurs. How so? Well, one of the oldest Mesopotamian cylinder seals, cylinder-shaped seals rolled on clay to embed images. 2, an engraving on Richard Bell's tomb, Bishop of Carlisle, buried in Carlisle Cathedral in the UK. And 3, the Narmer Palette, a vase from the First Dynasty Egypt, and estimated to be from 3100 to 2890 BC. These all have creatures that the average child would readily recognize as looking similar to a sauropod.
Right, so I just want to mention that he's just discussed some of the time differences. Now he's going to talk geographical.
All having long necks and tails, etc. Most fascinatingly, all 3 show them with their long necks entwined. Each of these artifacts are separated in time by hundreds of years, and geographically by hundreds of miles from where each was created, by 3 separate and distinct people groups living at different times in history. And yet all 3 groups depicted these long-necked, long-tailed creatures, unlike any living animals today, in the same pose, as if performing the same activity, like giraffes necking.
So that is one interesting and convincing ways of comparing things. It's like, okay, you got these 3 things that look very similar, but they're separated by hundreds of years in different locations. So it gives more credence that it was observed that way. Now we want to talk about, did humans and dinosaurs live at the same time, which is the whole purpose of this video. Here's an article from June 30th, 2023 from BBC, basically. And, well, it looks like very early human ancestors may have done just that, meaning, have you ever dreamed of walking among the dinosaurs? So, wow, right? So then you come down here, and real quick, we're able to understand quite a lot about the history of Earth from millions of years ago, thanks to things like fossils. So again, they are leaning towards old, right? Evolutionists in this case. But the fossils of the placental mammals that have been found so far on Earth are younger than 66 million years old, which is when an asteroid hit the planet causing massive extinctions of non-avian dinosaurs. So again, we see saying, okay, we know dinosaurs lived between 250 or 200 million years to up to 65 million years. So they're saying, well, they're younger than 66 million. It's just something we know. We also know that an asteroid came to give mass extinctions to dinosaurs. Well, that's their belief system. That's what they've been taught in school over and over and over again. Even though, as I said, when an asteroid hit the planet, how did it selectively say only dinosaurs, which takes a greater exercise to explain that? So then it says that's why some scientists believe placental mammals didn't begin to evolve until after this event and therefore didn't exist alongside the dinosaurs. So it's like, okay, so now they're trying to explain this. So they gotta explain it because they are holding strong to their belief system. So then it says, which is what I want to zoom into this section here. The latest analysis looks at a molecular clock data, which looks at how DNA and protein sequences have evolved over time. So again, they believe in evolution. Lead author Emily Carlisle of Bristol School of Earth Sciences said, and she quotes here, "We pulled together thousands of fossils of placental mammals and were able to see the patterns of origination and extinction of different groups. Based on this, we could estimate when placental mammals evolved." So they had an approach. Like, okay, you have your belief system, you're using evolve and all this stuff, and you are trying to explain it. But here comes where we zoom in on what the facts actually are. Researchers then used statistics to show how the earliest forms of placental mammals emerged during the Cretaceous period and therefore coexisted with the dinosaurs for a short period of time. During the Cretaceous period and therefore coexisted with the dinosaurs for a short period of time. So they're saying, okay, we have this evidence, but we have to explain the evidence. We don't want people to think this isn't evidence of a young Earth or animals or humans coexisted with dinosaurs, but yet that's exactly what this says. In their study of DNA and so forth, or what they checked, they are now saying, as this is highlighted, which groups of animals were found to have coexisted with dinosaurs. Well, they're using the word primates, include human lineage. So they're saying human here. But of course, from an evolution standpoint, well, we got to soften that. Let's call it primates. Because after all, that's where humans came from, right? According to their belief system. So they talk about rabbits and cats and dogs. And then, what does it say? The results also show that more modern lineages of placental mammals started to evolve after the mass extinction level. So again, they're trying to make it fit. So it's likely this happened because it was easier for them to, it's likely. Again, they're using certain words here. Happened because it was easier for them to diversify now. So they're trying to explain how this could have happened. In other words, there was less competition and more resources for the animals to thrive and evolve. So again, they're evolving. So today, after 100 years or so after Darwin, have we observed macroevolution from one species to another or one kind to another? And the answer is no. From one kind to another kind, the family grouping, we have not seen it. Okay, there must be transitional forms in the fossil record. Here's one. Then you go through peer reviewed science and you realize after some critique, it's not. So there is no evidence of it, but yet they're holding to it. So that's what I want to share in this one. Okay, another thing is eyewitness accounts. Marco Polo, he was an explorer, a traveler of sense. I think even I've read where Christopher Columbus was inspired by his efforts and so forth. So in the Library of Congress, there's actually the travels of Marco Polo existing image, convert to PDF, which is more images of the original book. It's kind of done in Old French. So then I went to here. I found a English version, even though it's written Old French here. Let's see if I can magnify this a little bit. Okay, so here we have in this chapter here, an English version, he starts new paragraph, new thought. Here are seven. Here are 7 huge serpents, 10 paces in length, and 10 spans in girth of the body. At the fore part near the head, they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, with eyes larger than a 4-penny loaf, and very glaring. So I wanted to know, how big is 10 paces in length according to this? So I then went to here, ChatGPT, can you blah, 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 where I went too fast. Can you tell me how long in feet? Can you do the conversion? It does explaining, but basically it says it's approximately 50 feet in length, and the girth suggests about 7.5 feet around the body. So we're talking huge. So we're talking huge. So again, this sounds something very big. Then we have, it continues, at the forepart near the head, they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger that are red. Okay, that says the jaws are wide enough to swallow a man, the teeth are large and sharp, and the whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any kind of animal can approach them without terror. So there's this huge creature that he's describing. So again, this is an eyewitness account while he was in Asia, like China. By the way, some people are saying, well, maybe this part is, maybe it's not everything of his travels is true. One of the things they try to discredit things like this, because we're not supposed to have an eyewitness of a dinosaur. So therefore you have to discredit the source or parts thereof. Oh, he doesn't mention the Wall of China. Okay, is that your argument? By the way, the Wall of China wasn't completed yet. Maybe that portion wasn't even there yet. Who knows? Or you didn't think to write it. So anyhow, we continue. Others are met with a smaller size, other creatures being 8, 6, or 5 paces long, and the following method is used for taking them. So now he's talking about, okay, this is what they did about them. He's observed this. So this is very good eyewitness testimony. Okay, so in the daytime, by reason of the great heat, they lurk in the caverns, from whence at night they issue to seek their food, and whatever beast they meet with and can lay hold of, whether tiger, wolf, or any other, they devour. After which they drag themselves towards some lake and spring of water or river in order to drink. So it's interesting, he uses that phrase. I don't know if it's stomach thing or tail thing or whatever, or they're just full from eating. By their motion is this way along the shore. Their vast weight, they make a deep impression, okay, due to their size, as if a heavy beam had been drawn along the sand. So now I'm thinking of the tail. Those whose employment it is to hunt them and observe the track by which they are most frequently accustomed to go, and fix into the ground several pieces of wood armed with sharp iron spikes, which they cover with the sand in such a manner as not to be perceptible. When therefore the animals make their way towards the places they usually haunt, they are wounded by these instruments and speedily killed. Then it goes on to say the crows, as soon as they perceive them to be dead, set up their scream, and this serves as a signal to the hunters, who advance to the spot and proceed to separate the skin from the flesh, taking care immediately to secure the gall, which is most highly esteemed in medicine. So he goes into detail of this event. I just want to wrap this up by saying in this part, we learned that, as I shared, that even AI, no matter almost what you use, something's supposed to be censored or not, it still wants to. It's been trained. It's trying to tell you stuff. there is a recognition that most people, most scientists, PhDs, and doctors, what have you, are thinking old, millions of years and things like that. And then it's like, okay, just because a lot of people believe it doesn't mean it's true, right? So it seems like there's a big battle going on. But when it comes to Christ, dinosaurs can prevent a person from coming to Christ. Dinosaurs can tell Christians that long periods are needed, even though the word doesn't say that it's millions of years old. It doesn't say that anywhere. It gives the impression the earth, the creation of what God's created, is thousands, not millions, right? So there's this battle going on. And then I said in a previous video, if we poke enough holes in the Genesis account, a global flood, they give the impression, say, oh, these are just stories, they're allegory, it's not real history. And then I say, then why do you need Jesus? Why do you need a real human being sacrifice it all so we could be saved? Saved from what? Sin. What sin? Well, the fall of man, Adam and Eve, which is now a story of fable. And therefore, why do I need a savior? So that's why it's important. It's important to talk about these things, not just at a child level and a cartoon-looking arc sort of thing when it comes to the global flood, which is another topic. But in this part, we're describing to say, okay, is there any evidence or witnesses of a dragon, which is equated to a dinosaur in this case, and so forth. So I hope this was helpful to you. In the next part, I'm planning to get back into God's Word to see, is there a mention of dinosaurs in the Bible? The word itself came much later. Of course, it's not. In older history, hundreds to 1,000 or so years, dragons were used, and now we understand they're equated to dinosaurs as well. We have some potteries, we have some evidence, we have some sightings, different people writing these things, and so forth. We have an eyewitness account. So there are indications, we mentioned in a previous video, that they have actually found T-Rexes with tissue that has red blood cells, that has proteins, a collagen. And in the best case, we're talking at best maybe, I think I read maybe 1,000,000 years at very best, until it decomposes, decays at the very best. So it's not 65 million. It's not 200 million years. There's just no way. So the evidence is here, but if you're biased, you say, no, I'm going to ignore that. No, or it's a hoax. Because if you are giving evidence that's true, then I have to throw out my belief. I don't want to do that. So this is what we should be equipped with. I hope you enjoyed this and see you in the next show. Thanks. Bye.